not. So what are you going to do then? You're going to try and get maximum value for this young man, and they got that. They got another number one. Now, that obviously creates another void for them on the defensive side of the ball. But what Brett Veach is trying to do, he's trying to stockpile picks. He's trying to not have a drop-off in terms of performance like at this position by getting younger, but getting younger and cheaper at the same time, because that's just life in the NFL. I can guarantee you they hated to get rid of Trent McDuffie. They hated to trade him away. And now it's going to put the onus on the front office, man. You have to find somebody to take this guy's role, because Trent is a guy who could shadow, he can move inside and move outside, and he was just a hell of a competitor and team locker room guy. You saw what Patrick Mahomes' reply was on social media already. They hated to get rid of this guy. But that's just business in the NFL once again in the salary cap era.
Yeah, look, from the Rams' perspective, I love it. Like, they're taking a swing. It's sort of what they did when they won their last Super Bowl, forgetting about those picks, right? But I do like the fact that Trent McDuffie can play both inside and outside. He's an elite tackler. He gives the Rams an opportunity to play man-to-man coverage more often and take more chances. He's an excellent blitzer from the slot as well. Like I mentioned, the Rams, they had a glaring need. They went and got Roger McCreary at the trade deadline. Then you go out there and you get McDuffie. I think it's genius. The Rams are in a very small Super Bowl window with Matthew Stafford probably playing 1 or maybe 2 more years. This just signifies to me they're all in. You heard him say last week, we need to get an all-pro caliber guy. This just makes defense a lot easier. You can literally, as a quarterback, forget about throwing to the half of the field that he's on. It just makes their defense better. It makes their defensive line better. It makes their entire operation better.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of things. What was the weakest part of the Rams team last year? A team that had Super Bowl aspirations. It was their secondary. So now you go out and you get, if not the top young corner in football, one of the top 3 young corners in football. Yeah, we know you're going to have to pay him. And so what you have to do is do the exercise of, could I get the same value at pick number 29 or something close to that? And I think Les Snead and everybody in the front office said, I'm going to go get the known commodity. It seems to me that's what they do in LA. They don't worry about the picks and go for something that we think we know. They go for the for sure and what we do know. That's why Les Snead has always traded those picks, because he's going for what he already knows. He's going for an all-pro and Trent McDuffie. They turn a position of weakness into a position of strength. And then on the other side, it's clear to me, Kansas City does not value cornerbacks. Think about Marcus Peters, L'Jarius Sneed, now Trent McDuffie. They groom them, they raise them, but they're not going to pay them. So let that be a message to all the corners that have come through KC. Hey, you can go there and play and get started, but you're probably going to get paid elsewhere. So I think this worked out well for both teams because of what both teams are trying to do. One team wanted to get stronger. Another team just doesn't value the position enough to pay on top of the dollar.
That comes down to scouting and trusting what you're going to do on that rookie contract if you're going to make that pick in the first round with the quarterback. Now, we weren't the only ones shocked by the trade. Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes posting his thoughts on X following the news, tweeting, "Damn." Well, short and sweet. Chase, what do you make of the reaction?
Score some more points, I know that.
From the 3-time Super Bowl winner, Chase. Your thoughts?
Well, you better score some more points. Exactly, Booger. That's what I thought. And look, a franchise quarterback, best in the world, in my opinion. You never like to lose great players. And when you lose great players, it makes it more difficult. But in Brett Veach, we trust. I know people in that building really well. They draft and develop younger players better than anyone, probably in the last decade. Brett Veach is a genius. I trust in him. It's always hard to lose a 25-year-old cornerback, but they followed a very similar plan to Tyreek Hill when they traded him away in 2022. They went out, they stockpiled picks, and what happened? They got back to the Super Bowl. This is a roster, you guys know, that needs to be retooled at multiple positions, specifically defensively with Spags running the defensive coordinator position, and that defense, you said it, Booger, corner for them does not matter. They play this two-high shell look where it's a read technique. They can play draft picks. They can play undrafted guys. Corner is not that important to the Kansas City Chiefs, and they showed us here today that it's not.
Yeah, look, I don't know if it's not important to them. I will say this. They do have a track record, though, of being able to find younger guys, and they have great coaches. Look, between Spags and guys like David Merritt, I mean, these guys are superstars now. They have really taken some younger players that a lot of people could not have gotten the mileage out of them that they've gotten out of them. So he's going to have to invest in the position at some point. He's stockpiling draft picks. He's not going to go out and sign some big name free agent to replace Trent McDuffie, obviously. Otherwise, he would have just signed Trent McDuffie. But they will find some people to draft and develop. They're going to have to make the position a priority. I think, though, there's no question that there's going to be an emphasis on really trying to upgrade the explosive component of the offense this year. I think that's where a lot of their attention is centered on. They have to take some of the pressure off of Patrick. They have to find another wide receiver. We don't know what's going to happen at tight end, and they better get some people to help out Chris Jones. So there's a lot of needs on this team, a lot of them. And so right now he's trying to put together that diagram about what this is all going to look like. But at corner, well, that's one thing. You're right. Look, Chase, I agree with you. That's one thing that Brett would sit there and go, if there's one thing I've shown you I can do, I can find corners that David Merritt and Steve Spagnuolo can go ahead and develop. I have proven to you I can do that, and I'm going to have to do it again.
Couple of house cleaning things. This will mark the first time the Chiefs have multiple first-round picks since 2022. That was the year they drafted Trent McDuffie 22nd overall. And the Rams sent their second of 2 ones, their own 29th pick, to the Chiefs. They still have the 13th pick, which they acquired from the Falcons. Keep that in mind. Les Snead's still cooking with a first-rounder. All right, we got more news coming in on NFL Live. This is an A block, a strong one. Aaron Rodgers is on the Pat McAfee show today. The 42-year-old potential free agent was asked about his future in Pittsburgh. Listen to this.
There hasn't been any progressive conversations. You know, I love Mike, and Mike and I have kept in contact over the years. I've had conversations with Omar. I really, I think Omar, enjoyed having me there. I think the guys, had a positive response, to our time together. But again, there hasn't been any deadline set on me. There hasn't been any contract, floated, in front of me for me to well, we're giving you till, March the 8th to make a decision on this contract. There's been nothing to that respect.
All right, the Mike McCarthy era is underway in Pittsburgh, and I know Boog demanded this. He demanded me to ask him this question first. What's your initial reaction to what Rodgers just said?
I could care less, Kev. I think you know exactly how I feel about Aaron Rodgers. Like, you and I have discussed this for the longest. I think we're making much too much ado about a 43-year-old to be quarterback. I think it's time for Pittsburgh to move on. I get it. I understand Pat and Aaron, they're friends, they want to talk. I get all that. But if you're looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers, they have a guy that they need to put on the field and find out if Will Howard can play. If not, 27 is going to be a great quarterback draft. So let's move on. I understand we're all fascinated with Aaron Rodgers, the 4-time MVP, and what he can do. But we just saw this last year. We saw a guy that does not want to get hit. We saw a guy that cannot carry a football team, but we're going to bring him back and ask him to do the same thing again. I get it. Now, some of what I'm saying is tongue-in-cheek, and we're having a little fun here. But let's just be real. If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, do you honestly want to go through another season of Aaron Rodgers? He's a first-ballot Hall of Famer, I get it. But it's not about what he's done. What can he do going forward? And if you're head coach Mike McCarthy, and this is your new era, Aaron Rodgers does not need to be in it. Play Will Howard, and if that doesn't work, get ready to draft a quarterback in 27.
Look, I think in theory it sounds simple. Like if you could just say, hey, look, you know what? We're just going to move on from Aaron. We're just going to throw Will Howard out there. This is the Pittsburgh Steelers, though. They don't know what they have in Will Howard. They just don't know. And they're not really in the business of kind of like throwing seasons away and just saying, hey, look, we're just going to put trot Will Howard out there and we'll just let the chips fall where they may. Look, I agree with you. I think everyone who's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan is frustrated over the fact that they have not been able to find a long-term option. They've tried some things that haven't worked out, and that's why they're constantly, every year, it seems like at the forefront of the discussion about what is Pittsburgh's long-term plan at quarterback. I think this may be another one of those years where you're looking for you're going to be looking for a bridge quarterback, quite honestly. It's just going to be a matter of what kind of profile does he have. Is it a younger guy or is it Aaron Rodgers? Because I don't think what their options are right now outside of the draft do not lead you to the conclusion that they'll be able to find their long-term option in the veteran market. They're just not going to be able to find it, and I don't believe Will Howard is it either. That's why a guy like Ty Simpson has to be someone who's going to be talked about within that organization. Does he fit what Omar Khan said is a AFC North type quarterback? Look, that's for them to decide. But right now, look, I don't have any issue with them bringing him back. And I don't know what the 2027 draft is going to be like. We thought that last year that the 2026 draft was going to be loaded, and we see where we're sitting here now. So I don't like ever talking about that, about, well, it's next year that we can address quarterback. We don't know what it's going to look like then either.
Well, it just seems to me that they're just kicking the can down the road. I'm with you, Louis. I actually like the fact that he's going to be back. I just hope it doesn't last the entire offseason of drama and everything like that. Look, he got him to the playoffs. He didn't throw an interception in the last 7 regular season games, had a good touchdown to interception ratio. But this is more of a Steelers franchise problem. Since Big Ben, they have not gotten the quarterback position right whatsoever. You look at Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, multiple others, Justin Fields, and look, at least Aaron gives them a chance to be competitive. I know Steelers fans are out there probably saying like, well, we want to be competitive every year. We get to the playoffs and we lose every single year. Yeah, that's right, because Mike Tomlin, in my opinion, and that organization, they never drafted well at quarterback. They had one forever. They never fixed it. And I'm with you. Like, I don't know what the 2027 quarterback draft class is. That's why if you are drafting, you have to somehow figure out, do you like Ty Simpson? Is Ty Simpson available? 15 career starts. I'm with you completely, Louis. And Booger, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm with you. Like, it's like a drama, but also, like, to me, it's the best fit right now.
And it feels like deja vu all over again with the Steelers. You're good, but not good enough to get a quarterback that's sustainable. But at the same time, you're not bad enough to draft a quarterback early in the first round. You're in the teens or the 20s. And by the way, they picked 21 in April's draft. All right, we're just getting started on NFL picks. We'll tell you what they could get to help Patrick Mahomes. Plus, the Cowboys, they cleared over $60 million of cap space. 7 Eastern, 6 Central. Then the Bucks host the Hawks. The NBA Countdown crew tipping off our coverage 6:30 right after SportsCenter. And back on NFL Live, some news coming out of Chicago yesterday. Center Drew Dahlman informing the team he is retiring after just 5 seasons. The 27-year-old was Chicago's marquee free agent signing during the 2025 offseason when he inked a 3-year, $42 million contract with the Bears. Dahlman was a key player along an offensive line that ranked first in the NFL in pass block win rate, 5th in run block win rate last season. The Bears' investment along the offensive line really paid major dividends for quarterback Caleb Williams. As a rookie in 2024, you see that he was sacked a league-high 68 times, and then during his second season, that number dropped to just 24 sacks and a deep run into the playoffs. For much more on this developing story, Bears reporter Courtney Cronin joining us in studio. What more can you tell us about this decision? Again, Dahlman's only 27.
Yeah, which is why it comes as such a surprise. I talked with some coaches on staff who found out yesterday that this was officially happening. There were some rumblings about this at the NFL Combine. Would he retire? Would there be any way to convince him to play another season? Because he did just sign that 3-year, $42 million free agent deal last year, and he was coming off the best year of his career. Made a Pro Bowl, played every single snap on offense, no health issues to speak of. So the question becomes why? And people I've talked to tell me that Drew Dahlman is somebody who thinks in black and white terms. And what does that mean? It means that he's looking at the long-term play here. He grew up in an NFL household. His father played for the San Francisco 49ers back in the 90s. He was a coach for the Atlanta Falcons. Drew has seen the effects that an NFL career can have on somebody. So at 27 years old, somebody who's known as a very cerebral person, a Stanford grad, kind of doing what another Stanford grad did a couple years ago. Andrew Luck is the first name that comes to mind there. So this is not something that was injury related or anything that had to do with the current time. This is Drew Dahlman thinking about his future, which of course creates a significant void along a position that became the team's strength after it had been its weakness for so many years.
So how does this team now, especially a week before the new league year, how do they plan to fill this position?
So free agency was also all supposed to be about the pass rush. Fixing the pass rush, using the cap space that they still have yet to create to go get a premier edge rusher to complement Montez Sweat. Now you have to replace 40% of your starting offensive line because it's not just Drew Dahlman we're talking about here. Left tackle, Ozzie Trapillo, is out for the majority of 2026. He had a patellar tendon injury that he suffered against the Green Bay Packers in the wild card round. So they have to go find a starting left tackle. They have to go find a starting center. So that complicates the pictures here because the center position, ever since the days of Roberto Garza and Olin Kreutz, that has been a revolving door in Chicago. And they thought for a long time that this would be the one position you don't have to worry about because of how durable and reliable Dahlman is. Now they go back to the drawing board. The trenches, all of them are what they're focusing on in free agency.
And you get that comfort, too, with Caleb Williams, and you saw the growth, that jump there in Ben Johnson's offense in year one. Courtney, thank you so much. Boog, let's get your thoughts here. How much do you see the absence of Dahlman impacting Williams?
Well, I think it's going to impact it a lot, Kev. First, let me just add to that. I think when you look at Drew Dahlman, let's not forget, not only did his dad play professional football, his dad had spinal surgery early in his career, and so maybe he's looking at the effects of that and how that may affect him making a smart decision. As far as Caleb Williams, understand the center-quarterback relationship, okay? Somebody's making the calls. Somebody's getting every offensive lineman lined up. That's usually the center of the quarterback. They're identifying the blitz. Is the blitzer coming from the left? Is the blitzer coming from the right? And on top of that, let's understand this, Kev. There is a close relationship because there is a man that's sticking both of his hands underneath your rear end for 3 hours every day in the offseason, during the season, in practice, or whatever. And you got to get a comfort zone with that. And so if you are Caleb Williams, there is a comfort zone between you and the guy Drew Dahlman. I know it seems very minuscule, but until you try it, don't knock it. There has to be comfort. And so I think now he's got to go through an entire offseason of finding new comfort, who's going to make the calls, who's going to do all these different things. It's another added layer and another something to do for Caleb Williams in the offseason and a season we're looking for him to take the next step.
And that next step for him is more command of this offense. He's talked about it. It's being able to make the checks at the line of scrimmage and being able to know where he can change the protections. That starts with Drew Dahlman. And Caleb had a nickname for every single offensive lineman. I don't know if you guys are big Marvel people. You call them the Avengers. And the most important Avenger, arguably, is the Hulk, because it's the brute strength and being tactical with that, but also he has the PhD level intellect from his human alter ego. That's Drew Dahlman. That's what the Bears are going to be missing here. So to find somebody who can mitigate the issues along the offensive line with some of the communication early on, that was what plagued the Bears weeks 1 through 4. A lot of pre-snap penalties, a lot of issues up front. Drew Dahlman and Caleb Williams, once they got their connection rolling, that was seamless. Starting over there for a young quarterback who's now going to be on his third center in 3 NFL seasons, that's a pretty significant task the Bears are going to have to handle this offseason.
And the key in this offense, too, going under center, something we didn't see his rookie season. Then you saw it in Ben Johnson's offense. I would imagine also that when you talk about the Avengers, Caleb Williams is going to be Iron Man. Well, you know nothing about that. That's between Courtney and I, but I would imagine that he's Iron Man, okay?
He could be Spider-Man, too. I don't know if Spider-Man was an Avenger.
See, exactly. I just proved my point right there. Right there, Courtney, thank you. Keep in mind, despite winning the division in 2025, DraftKings Sportsbook has Detroit and Green Bay ahead of Chicago to win the NFC North next season. All right, we got more news coming in on NFL Live, as we have from Jeremy Fowler. The Chargers plan to release guard Mekhi Becton in the coming days. Per a source, the move saves LA $9.7 million on the cap. Let's bring in our other guys here on the program, and that is Chase Daniel and Louis Riddick here. Chase, we know the Chargers O-line struggled all last season. How can this unit improve to help maximize this offense?
Well, they're going to need a lot of help. First of all, it's getting those 2 tackles back, Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt, which I think are the best tandem in the National Football League. Then you have to go and you have to secure some interior guys with a lot of grittiness, with a lot of toughness. The run game has to be way more dynamic under new offensive coordinator Mike McDaniel, which I believe it will be. But Justin Herbert got beat up so many times last year, and the offensive line was really, really bad. As a quarterback, you want those front 3 offensive linemen so you can step up into the pocket. We were able to see Justin Herbert use his legs more than he ever did last year. And look, I think that Justin Herbert, talent-wise, is a top 6 or 7 quarterback in the league, but he needs some help.
He took a beating, man, week after week after week. Lewis, on the other side of the ball, the Chargers, they didn't use the franchise tag on Odafe Oweh or Khalil Mack. You okay with that?
Well, they're awful thin. They're awful thin now on the edge. Now the only guy ability they have returning that they can count on is Tui Pelotu. And after that, there's really not anyone. And they have a new defensive coordinator. Jesse Minter leaves, goes to Baltimore. Chris O'Leary comes in, and he's sitting here going, hey, wait a minute. He's looking around going, I need some guys out here on the perimeter. They're not going to really get that help on the edge in veteran free agency. And a couple of those guys on your screen, like Arvell Reese, David Bailey, Reuben Bain Jr., they're going to be gone. But when you get down there in the range of Keldrick Falk, Zion Young, Cassius Howe from Texas A&M, T.J. Parker from Clemson, those are the guys that you're going to be looking at. And then there's going to be then it's going to come down to the discussion of what's more important. How are we going to prioritize this? Do we need to get an edge guy? Does that represent the best value pick for us at that position? Or are we going to need to go ahead and continue to fortify the interior of the offensive line, as Chase has mentioned? These are the discussions that all front offices have. The Chargers are right in the middle of it.
Critical offseason. The Chargers currently have the third most available cap space according to roster management system. Still to come here on NFL Live. After trading Trent McDuffie to the Rams, the Chiefs have a big hole in their secondary, and Lewis thinks more trades could be on the horizon. NFL Live, breaking news coming out of New England. The Patriots will be releasing Stephon Diggs next week when the new year begins in the NFL. Diggs coming off one season with the Patriots, a part of a Super Bowl team that lost to the Seahawks. He caught 85 balls from Drake May, and you see Mike Reese coming out saying, Diggs thanks the Patriots. A source saying the Patriots have informed him he will be released at the start of the league year. Ties to finances. Cap charge was spiking from $10.5 million to $26.5 million. All right, more breaking news here as the Rams and Chiefs have agreed to trade all-pro cornerback Trent McDuffie to L.A. for a package of draft picks that includes this year's first-round pick, 29th overall, 5th and 6th-round picks, and a 2027 third-round pick. Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes got to the point among Kansas City players to react on social media after the news of the trade, just writing, damn, in a post on X this afternoon. And back here with Boog, Lewis, and Chase. I talked about this earlier. McDuffie's only 25 years old. Now he leaves one Super Bowl contender to another Super Bowl contender. Boog, your thoughts on the Chiefs deciding to move him?
Well, I think when you look at the top of the cornerback market, you got, Derek Stingley Jr., Sauce Gardner. Those guys are making $30 million a year. And it's clear that the Chiefs weren't going to invest $30 million a year into Trent McDuffie. Just look at their history. When you go back to Marcus Peters, L'Jarius Sneed, now Trent McDuffie, they're not going to pay their best corner or even a corner that deserves top of the market money. They're just not going to do it. And so now this solves that problem because now you get a first-round pick back. You get several picks back, actually, and it allows you to use those picks to either go on offense or help the pass rush up front. And if you're the Rams on the other side, I think from a Rams standpoint, this turns one of the weakest parts of your team into a strong suit because you have arguably a top 3 corner in football. So oftentimes, Kevs, when worlds collide and you get a win-win situation, those are the types of trades that I love to see, Chase. And this trade here is a win-win for both teams based on where they are and the Chiefs' philosophy of not paying cornerbacks and the Rams needing a corner as they are in win-now mode.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I do think it's a win-win for both teams. The Rams get their star all-pro corner, but I really like this from the Chiefs. And it's hard to say that when you lose a 25-year-old all-pro player. But when you look at it, they are following the exact same path they did with Tyreek Hill and other corners that you mentioned. They trade them away, they get 4 picks, and they build through the draft. There's not many other GMs in the league that I trust more than Brett Veach. The success is there, everything about it. They draft and develop specifically on the defensive side of the football, these corners. When I played there and I played against Steve Spagnuolo, defensive coordinator, I'm not saying that they're throwaway guys at corner, but these guys are called faceless opponents, which means it doesn't really matter who plays the corner position in Steve Spagnuolo's too high zone. You're sort of reading, is it Porters? Is it Cloud? Whatever it is. Look, they're going to lose a legit tackler and a really good man-to-man. But I feel really good about them having the opportunity to develop these guys and to plug and play these guys when needed.
All right, Lewis, let's talk a little bit about the draft. You guys talked about Veach a couple of times and how good he is at this. And that is why this team is relevant, and they can spend all the money that they spend with Mahomes and all these other guys, but still come back year after year because they nail at least day 1 and day 2. They are armed with the 29th pick, now the 9th pick, and right now the mocks have them going with Jeremiah Love. Does this change now with this trade, their approach at 9?
No, I don't think it does. As long as Jeremiah Love is still within their wheelhouse, I think they have to take him. look, you just do. Eric Bieniemy back in the fold as the offensive coordinator, a former running back. You got running back coaches coming up to me and saying, you know who Jeremiah Love reminds me of in terms of the fluidity with which he runs? He reminds me of the great Eric Dickerson. Not quite as tall, doesn't have that same upright style, but they just say the grace with which he moves is just too hard to ignore. And Brett Veach isn't going to ignore that either. Now, they have 2 1s, a 2, a 3, and a 4, and 3 5s this year. If Jeremiah Love isn't there, I think that's where it gets interesting. Because they do have a bunch of needs now, okay? They need a franchise running back. They need another wideout. They need another pass rusher, whether that be inside or outside, to help out Chris Jones. And then they need to stockpile again at corner. So they really need 4 premium guys. Right now, they have the ammo to get at least 3 of them. Maybe if Jeremiah Love isn't there, could Brett say, hey, look, does somebody want to come up to 9? Can I move down? Can I pick up an extra 2 or a 3 somewhere along the line where I have 2 1s and 2 2s this year, along with 3 5s and the rest of my picks? You absolutely could. Because then what you're doing is you're infusing a lot of youth into your team, a lot of high picks into your team, and you're bringing those cap numbers down, and you're getting a little bit more, let's just say, fluid and able to move around within the salary cap instead of always having to go to Patrick and say, hey, look, we got to renegotiate that contract again. We got to give you more money up front and spread this money out, which I'm sure Patrick will say, hey, that's cool. I got you. But you know what? That's not the way they want to manage the cap going forward forever.
You know what's fascinating, too? If they don't get Love, a Notre Dame running back at 9, at 29, they could still get another Notre Dame running back in Jadarian Price, who could have an impact there on the back end, right? You can address something at 9 or collect assets and still get a fantastic Notre Dame running back who's a home run hitter.
Sure.
All right, we'll continue to see how this plays out, of course, over the next 50 days as the NFL draft is just 7 weeks away. And Jerry Jones says, Boog, you're a big golf guy. TGL last night. Tom Kim hit a hole-in-one. And check out Max Homa delivering the blow, the big hit. Boog, how would you rate this takedown?
Oh, wow. Yeah, listen. If you get a hole-in-one, anything goes, especially once we get to the bar after the round. I've never had a hole-in-one, but if I do get one, it's going to be worse than this.
That's targeting for sure.
Wait a second. How would you view a hole-in-one inside an indoor space the same way as you would on the golf course?
Absolutely. I have a golf club. There's a hole. Ball goes in the hole in one shot. I'm counting it all, Kev.
Chase agrees. Lewis, do you agree?
You know what? Hey, man, a win is a win, dude. You know, it's too hard. They're too hard to come by. Yeah, I'm taking it. I don't care if it's virtual or not.
Yeah, that sounds like 4 guys that never had a hole-in-one.
Never.
You take whatever you can
That's
get.
exactly what it sounds like.
Never.
Well done by Homa with the hit, as well as Kim. All right, 1 week until free agency, and the Cowboys are already making moves to make sure they're in position to do some big spending. They got under the $301.2 million salary cap today by restructuring the contracts of Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb and Tyler Smith, the left guard. Prescott's base salary goes from $40 million to $1.8. Lamb's and Smith's drops to $1.7 in that range. The differences were turned into signing bonuses for cap purposes to free up space. And here's Jerry on the Cowboys' plans for free agency.
The only way to push more is for me to go borrow some of my future. Okay? Expect me to go borrow some of my future. I really can't accept just the thought of winning one Super Bowl and then what. I see a chance to put a team together and basically be knocking at the edge and get another one or get a chance at another one. I would bet that we will spend more money in free agency than we have.
Okay, over the last 5 seasons in the offseason, the Cowboys have spent $284 million in the free agency window, which is 2 days before the official start of free agency and extending 6 weeks. That is last in the NFL in that span. However, Dallas has spent the 6th most money in the league over the last 5 seasons. They just don't often do it during free agency. Okay, he says it, he talks it. It's not like he's saying I'm all in like we've heard in the past. But, Lewis, I'm giving you the opportunity to spend some money.
Yeah.
How should the Cowboys spend their money this offseason?
Yeah, the money's going to be spent on defense. And look, I think it has to be spent front to back, right? So you're going to start up front. I think you're good on the interior with your defensive tackles. You've already made enough moves at the defensive tackle spot that you figure that the interior pass rush is good to go. It's who can you get to come off of the edge? Who is the big game? Who can you go big game hunting for right now? I think obviously that has to start with Trey Hendickson. I think you have to make a run at a guy like Trey, because that would make your defensive front pretty formidable. Think about Quinnen Williams, Trey Hendickson, Osa Odigizua. I mean, that's a pretty good group. Kenny Clark, that's a pretty good group. Donovan Ezra-Rock, who they drafted last year out of Boston College. Now you're cooking. Then in the draft, like obviously this isn't free agency spending, but who knows how much it'll cost to get Trey to come there, because I think Indianapolis will be players because his old coach is there, right? Lou Anarumo's the defensive coordinator there, who he had so much success with in Cincy. In the draft, that's when you go heavy on the secondary. That's where you go heavy at corner. You go heavy at safety. That's when you start thinking about Mansour Delane. You start thinking about guys like Dylan Thieneman from Oregon, a safety, a corner, guys who are hybrid dudes who are young, fast, big hitters, turn the football over. Now I think then you're talking about maybe getting that one Super Bowl that he's talking about that he says he wouldn't be satisfied with. He needs 2 or 3. Just get one. Just get to the playoffs and then win a game. Let's just start there.
You know, we're always trying to spend the Cowboys' money. I'm going to help Jerry out. Right now, his defensive tackle room is the most expensive defensive tackle room in football. So I think we need to trade one of those guys. Whichever one, you just traded for Quinnen Williams, so it's not going to be him. So either Kenny Clark or Odigizua, one of those guys to me has to go. And in turn, now what you said, Lewis, let's start enacting on that plan. Let's add some guys to come off the edge, because you got to get pass rush. Doesn't matter who's calling the defense. If you don't have guys that can make the ball come out, it does not matter. And then once we address the front, let's then get to the back end. But there's no doubt, defensively is where they need to go. But before they start spending some money, I don't think you can have as much money as they have tied up at the defensive tackle position. You can only play 2 unless you're going to play a bare front, which is center and both guards are covered. I don't know many teams are playing that as their base. So you can only play 2 defensive tackles. They have a lot of money tied up in those 3 guys.
All right, let's spend Jerry's money since we're all doing it here. Offensively, they're good. I think offensively, Dak Prescott playing like a top 2 or 3 quarterback last year. I think that's a top 5 offense. Go to defense. What both you guys said, it starts with the defensive line, then the linebackers, then the secondary. They need the most help there. You cannot leave free agency without either landing Trey Hendickson or Max Crosby. One of those 2 guys to make a splash, finally come through on your promise, Jerry, of giving the Dallas Cowboys something they need. And I love the fact that you're going to do it building from the front to the back. Because if you get to the quarterback faster, that makes your job easier in the secondary. If you can have up double teams, like you guys know, linebackers can roam free. I think without a doubt, Max Crosby, Trey Hendickson would shore up that defensive line. And I love Lewis's idea of going in the draft and spending for corner and safety. But you have to land either Trey Hendickson or Max Crosby.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And look, Trey's going to be a good one. That's going to be a good one to go get. There's going to be a lot of teams who are going to look at someone like Trey Hendickson and go, yeah, he could help put us over the top. New England's going to look at him. Chicago's going to look at him. So look, there's going to be a bidding war, and Jerry is going to have to spend some of that future money, no question. I'd love to see Max Crosby there too. I just don't know if John Spytek is going to be willing to go ahead and come off of a guy who is ultimately one of the great Raiders of all time. He really embodies everything that is a Raider. So Jerry, I know he may be willing to spend money. I just don't know if he wants to give up compensation in terms of draft picks, and that's what it's going to cost. Maybe 2 1s, at least a 1 and a 2, maybe a future 1, in 27. It's going to cost a lot, but hey, if you say you're going all in, then go all in and put your money where your mouth is.
And you talk about the defense. They finished last in the league in points per game and 30th in yards per game last season, obviously led by a fantastic offense. And we have some breaking news here. Legendary former Notre Dame head coach Lou Holtz has died at the age of 89, his family announced on Wednesday. A college football Hall of Famer, Holtz led the Fighting Irish to the national championship in 1988. Before that, he also had a brief NFL coaching stint, leaving the college ranks to coach the New York Jets in 1976, going 3-10 before resigning in December that season. Lou famously said upon his departure, God did not put Lou Holtz on this earth to coach in the pros. Holtz, as a college head coach, won 249 games. He was a former colleague here at ESPN, and we will all miss Lou Holtz.
Playing there, great organization, great people in the city, just a ton of support. I know we haven't been as good as we could be, and I know we can be. But yeah, now at this point, kind of earned the right to explore free agency, see what's out there, and just, make a decision that's best for my career.
Sauce Gardner doesn't want to see his teammate head out of Indy, posting, should I lock Alec Pierce in my basement and force him to sign the contract papers? Well, right now, no tag for Pierce. They did tag somebody else. The reason why Pierce will be shopping around, the Colts placing the transition tag on the quarterback, Daniel Jones. This preserves Indy the right to match any competing offer he might sign with an interested team. If Jones does not sign a competing offer, he would earn a one-year guaranteed salary of $37.8 million. Also, okay, let's just also add that he's coming off a career year, but he also tore his Achilles in Week 14. Chase, do you like the Colts' decision to transition tag Daniel Jones?
The transition tag is an interesting one, but I actually really like it for both the player and the team, because now the Colts and Chris Ballard, they can have Daniel Jones go to the market and dictate what he's worth. I know they don't want to overpay Daniel Jones. And look, honestly, when you watch the film of Daniel Jones last year, there was a 9 or 10 game stretch where he was out of his mind. I mean, every single throw was on the money, multiple touchdowns. The Colts were the talk of the town. Then he gets hurt in Week 14, 3 straight losses at that. So I do think this is the best Daniel Jones has played in an NFL uniform, but you still have to find a way to keep Alec Pierce, because Daniel Jones and Alec Pierce, to me, they go together like peanut butter and jelly, man. For real, they actually do such a good job of complementing each other's games. Daniel Jones fits really well in that Shane Steichen offense. It's going to be interesting, though, because the one team I would watch out for is the Minnesota Vikings. You can go sign an offer sheet. Going back with Kevin O'Connell might be interesting.
Yeah, and I know everyone keeps throwing out the Minnesota Vikings, but here's the thing. I think the timing of the Achilles, to me, is the most important thing, because he tore the Achilles, if I'm not mistaken, in December. That's a 9 to 12 month, and I'm going to err on the 12-month side, I think, injury. And so we're all assuming that Daniel Jones is going to be healthy. We're all assuming that at some point Daniel Jones is going to be ready to play this season. What if he's not? And if you're the Minnesota Vikings, you need a quarterback like now, because nobody up there is thinking that J.J. McCarthy is the answer. And I think if you're Indianapolis, the reason you place the transition tag on is it gives you the opportunity to match any offer if there is an offer. And I think it also shows Daniel Jones that you want him back, even if he's not able to play this season. I think that's something that we need to keep in mind. We do not know if Daniel Jones is going to take a single snap this season. We're all assuming Minnesota needs a quarterback Week 1. Indianapolis is looking at this from a long view standpoint because they gave away their first round picks for Sauce Gardner. So they're playing the long view. Other teams can't afford to do that.
Yeah, this is super interesting as far as what's going to happen here, as far as how this plays out between Daniel Jones and then now what is going to happen with Alec Pierce. It sounds like Alec Pierce is gone now. So even if Daniel Jones is healthy and he is back in the fold, he has now lost a guy who for the past 2 years has averaged over 21 yards per reception, which is just ridiculous. And I know people are going to sit there and go, "What? Wait a minute, he only had 47 receptions. He's a low volume guy." Yeah, well, that's because really the quarterback position hasn't been an area of strength for him. You put him on a team for the kind of money he's going to command on the open market, which I promise you it's going to be pushing $30 million per year. That's what it's going to be pushing. He's going to be pushing wide receiver 1 type money, and he knows it. That's why he's probably excited to get to the market. And teams have the money to pay it. The Raiders have the money to pay it. The Titans have the money to pay it. The Commanders have the money to pay it. The New England Patriots would love to have a guy like this. You think the Buffalo Bills wouldn't love to have a guy like Alec Pierce? I'm not saying they can go get him. And then remember this too. Which quarterback would love to have a guy like Alec Pierce that resides in the AFC West? Patrick Mahomes.
That's how we started the show, talking about the Chiefs. Let's wrap things up. Let's talk about one more thing. That is Randy Moss joining the Kelsey brothers on their New Heights podcast. Safe to say, everyone loves Randy.
I knew I was going to miss competing.
Okay.
You see, is Ellie in the background?
This is so funny.
You go upstairs, girl? No? Why not?
Is that the oldest one?
This is my second. You say hi to the greatest receiver ever to play football? Say hi to Randy Moss.
That's so epic. Hello, sweetheart. How are you? Oh, that was gold, man. Bye.
Man.
Love you, Uncle Chappie.
Okay,
Okay, baby.
Nice.